What's up, all you mentees? This is the Uncanny Omar, and thank you for joining us for a live retrospect of Batman: The Long Halloween, one of my favorite stories of all time. As a matter of fact, I recommend this story to anybody that's trying to get into the character of Batman. With me, I have a very special panel that I have assembled. It's taken me years to assemble this panel. But to my right, I have a really good friend of mine, and this is her first comic book that she's read. She's also the host of an amazing podcast and YouTube show where she talks about horror movies mainly, right?
Yep.
So, okay, you wanted to talk about a horror comic, and I chose Batman: The Long Halloween. But you know what? There's a little scary bits here and there.
Yeah, it worked.
So why don't you introduce yourself and talk about your show? But before I do, there is a giveaway. Some lucky winner tonight is going to be able to win a copy of Batman: The Long Halloween, the new deluxe edition that just came out from Dying Breed Collectors. But yes, before we do that, Kate.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Katie. Sometimes Omar's going to call me Kate. I go by that too. And I made a very dark decision when I lived in Louisville to get a PhD, and that was trauma and darkness, but I did it in horror, so it made sense because it was trauma and darkness. And now I have a YouTube channel, and I have a podcast called Such a Nightmare, Conversations About Horror, and we just talk about various horror movies and books, and maybe someday now I can start talking about comics. I'm going to just slowly encroach upon
let's Omar's not go too crazy, okay? And below me is this lovely lady who is my co-host on the movies that we review and the TV shows that we've been reviewing, and joins me from time to time on Met My Ex, which is a crazy segment that we have on this channel where we really geek out and talk about all the different. Yeah, it is, especially when there's drinking involved. And who are you?
So I'm a cosplayer primarily. I do pop on this channel a lot to talk things like pop culture and comics, as Omar said. But most of my accounts are cosplay related things and costume content. So if that's your thing, definitely go check it out. I have the same username on pretty much anything if you search it up.
Okay, there you go. And opposite me down here, this angle, is the guy that kind of assembled all this together because he's like, hey, I really want to talk about this book and I want to give away a copy of it to one of your lucky viewers. So I said, of course, I like paying things forward. So it's a secret giveaway for anybody that's watching live today. So tell us about yourself, my man, on his honeymoon.
Omar, glad to be here. For those of you who don't know, actually, Omar's been trying to get me on for like 2 years. He reaches out to my publicist like every week, and I'm like, maybe after he gets like 50K and he's got enough followers, but no, he's right. I asked him to be here. That's really what happened. So my name's Johnny. I own Dying Breed Collectors, which is an online retail store for collected editions, out of print or discounted. I've got Instagram at Dying Breed Collectors with some underscores. Occasionally I post on YouTube. If I get new stuff, I like to talk about it. But yeah, basically the website, and I'm a pal of Omar's. We've been talking online for a few years on the phone, so happy to be here, talk about my favorite book, and it's my favorite comic book ever, so really happy to talk about it with you guys. So I can't
wait till Kate puts on her professor hat and destroys this comic
book.
No. and she's gonna remind us why we suck. All right, so let's dive into this particular story. By the way, there are gonna be spoilers when we talk about this because there's just no other way to talk about this and dissect it in the way that we wanted to. So it's a little bit different than old reader, new reader, because we've all have read this with the exception of Kate. So she's kind of our guinea pig. So I guess it's old reader, guinea pig reader, but whatever. So the basic premise is pretty simple. This takes place after year one. So Batman has been Batman for just a little bit. He's still a little new to the role of Batman, but he has pretty much gathered this just super villains that have come to Gotham. Like, you get to know them, especially through this right here. And this is also kind of Batman year 2, but it feels like Harvey Dent year 1 because you also have him as one of the main characters. And then the third main character, I would say, is Commissioner Gordon. So there's your 3 main characters, and it's all about them trying to figure out this whodunit mystery. So there's somebody that's going around killing all members of these mobster family, and the Carmine family. All of them were the Falcones. All of them were in the Batman year 1. The whole idea started because Archie Goodwin wanted to pitch this story. Archie Goodwin was the editor at the time who passed away. As a matter of fact, Tim Sell draws Commissioner Gordon like Archie Goodwin. It's one of my favorite tributes to the man. And Archie Goodwin was like, hey, I kind of want to bring the mobsters back from year one. We have a lot of Batman fighting a bunch of supervillains these days. I kind of want to bring it back to the basics. So they asked Jeff Loeb, who had just written this one-shot, or a couple of one-shots called The Haunted Knight the year before this started. And Jeff Loeb, of course, was a screenwriter in Hollywood, and he was like, well, I guess if the comic book doesn't work for me, I can go back to screenwriting. So he wrote hits like Commando and Teen Wolf and TV shows. Actually, he wrote some, was it cartoons, I think? But anyway, so he joined with his buddy Tim Sell, which the two of them had previously worked together in Haunted Knight, as well as the Challengers of the Unknown. And they came up with this 13 issues, so 1 year in the life of Gotham City, trying to figure out this whodunit mystery. And that's pretty much the premise of The Long Halloween. So it starts in Halloween night, and it ends in Halloween night the following year. So, let's go. Who wants to take a stab at... Let's talk about the progression of the story. Like, how it all came about, the whole mystery.
So you actually mentioned that it's like early on in Batman's career, so I'm going to kind of jump around because we already said spoilers. So one of my favorite aspects of this story is that he's so early on in his detective career that he doesn't actually solve the mystery. You know, when you think about it, he doesn't solve the case before it's concluded. Like the end scene, you know, where Harvey eventually kills Carmine, that proves right there that he wasn't as good of a detective as he eventually becomes. So I thought that was interesting.
I think it's actually one of my favorite parts because so often origin stories don't indicate that like part of it is like figuring out not just like how to use your powers or how to use your Batmobile, but like also just how to like be a hero. And I thought that was really lovely to just see that play out. I don't know if I've seen an origin story that has done so quite as effectively.
Well, and they also show that there's kind of like some despair between Batman and Gordon towards the end of the story when Batman thinks Harvey is the killer and Gordon's like, well, how long have you known? And Batman doesn't even like respond to him in that panel. So it's kind of showing that they still haven't even built up that trust that they eventually get where they just go off of what the other one says. I mean, he doesn't know if he can trust Batman at this point. So
yeah, there was a panel in that scene where Batman's shadow has, you know, Gordon is literally in Batman's shadow as it elongates across the roof of the building. And it really, I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about their relationship at that moment.
Wow. That's
there's this, there's been movies that have borrowed heavily from this, right? Like Batman Begins and Batman, The Dark Knight. That one borrowed, especially the I Believe in Gotham City, I Believe in Harvey Dent, that whole monologue. It's an amazing story, and I like how it's broken down to three different things. And the whole mystery is there, of course. Somebody's offing all these mobsters one by one on a different holiday. So immediately they go back to, well, okay, it's Batman. So he's trying to figure out who it is. Well, it's got to be the Calendar Man, because there's a character that he put in, I think is it Arkham at this point?
Arkham.
Okay. So he throws in Arkham and of course, it's got to be him. There's nobody else. Maybe the Joker. So it kind of keeps fooling you as to who it is. That's what I like about this.
Two things I will say to contrast it with the movie as well, because I watched and read them back to back. I think the movie did a good job of bridging but building out character development, and us talking about it being so close to Batman Year One. In the movie, several times they bring up too, like, I need to be more of a detective. Ooh, I gotta be a detective. Like, they bring up actively that he's a bad detective several times in the movie to kind of also clue you in that this is probably pretty close to the beginning of his career. He's more of a rough and tough.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing I was gonna say is I think the comic does a better job of giving you more suspects, I would say. Yeah. I think reading through the comic, there was a handful more suspects, where in the movie there was maybe really 3, maybe less, that you really thought it was. But in the comic, they let you think, you know, it could be like 5, 6 different people over the course of the whole thing.
I've actually done a lot of like breakdowns of this story like by myself and like just deep dives on it. And yeah, like you, even after knowing like the story and what the ending is that they give you, you can still kind of make a strong case for other people being killers at different times. So like those red herrings that they use throughout are incredibly effective. I mean, the Harvey Dent ones seem to be the strongest, but like there's little seeds of doubt implanted throughout the story that it could be, like you said, 5 or 6 different people, and even afterwards they kind of make sense. So it's interesting. It's good writing. It's very good writing.
Yeah.
1920 slang from Oddfell, rough and tough. Yeah, I ain't heard that for a minute. I know what you're trying to do, man. I'm not gonna fall for that bait. But yes, he's a 6 out of 10 detective. I said it. The whole whodunit thing was, it's always fun to go back and revisit, because even after reading this the first time, second time, I always forget. I'm like, wait, who was supposed to be the killer? By the time the end comes around, like, was there a definitive killer at the end? But each of the one thing we didn't mention so far is that each of the holidays has a different character from Batman's rogue gallery. And it does a really good job of introducing the characters, like the Riddler, the Joker. So if you're not familiar with them, you kind of get to know what they're about. Even though, you know, you might have seen the TV show, you might have seen the animated series or the movies, you kind of get an idea of who they are. So what did you think about this, Kate? As your first comic book that you read in whole, like as a graphic novel?
Yeah.
What did you think of the dialogue, the narration? Like,
so the other stuff that I've read are like, I have read Days Gone By, the Walking Dead episode. I have read Victor LaVille's Destroyer, but I was telling people that I've only read them to teach them, and I haven't read them as part of a series, right? Like, or I haven't read them as part of a larger tradition of comics. So it took me a second to get used to it, because I wasn't prepared for, although I should have been, the like, but dun 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 of every holiday ending, and I was like, but wait, I have so many questions still. And then, you know, having to like be refreshed into each new episode with the like reminder, here are our major characters. But I found it so helpful to have the introduction to all of our, you call them the rogues, is that?
Well, I don't really call them the rogue gallery.
Okay.
It's just what we call them as comic book
Okay.
nerds. You call them whatever you want to. His baddies, his villains, whatever you want to call them.
Because there were a couple scenes where, you know, they just have the like names above the doors, and I was like on my phone and I'm like, who is? And I, you know, was having to.
You kids on your internet. Back in my day, I had to go to the library to find out who these characters were.
Yeah, it definitely. And then I was like, how come I don't know the Mad Hatter? Because he's not been in any of the movies that I've seen. That's why. So it was really helpful to have that introduction. I thought it was clever to match them with the holiday, because it makes sense, right? Each one of them belongs with the holiday, because each one is over the top. Each one is you know, this sort of like carnival-esque magic moment. And that is what every holiday is, right? It's that period where we suspend all the rules and we're like, you can do whatever you want and nothing has to make sense. And that is the Batman bad guys, right? They are these moments of like, just magic that doesn't make sense in a world that's not always magical.
You know, there's a whole theory about Batman. One of my favorite ways that some of the writers have written him, like Morrison or more to that extent, is that the idea is that Batman brings these crazy cuckoo people to Gotham because he's dressed like a bat. It's not that these are supervillains that he's fighting, but because he's just as crazy as they are, he brings out the worst in people. And I like that they kind of touch upon that in here too, you know, in a very subtle way.
Well, Batman's also very dismissive of it when Gordon brings it up. He like cuts Gordon off and he's like, nope, that's not the reason. Like, it's like a no period, that's it. So even though, you know, it is brought up a couple times, Batman himself really is against that thought that he's the reason this is happening. He actually even brings up the fact that his father, I mean, this doesn't have to do with the supervillains, but his father saving Carmine's dad caused the Carmine family to be around, creating so much corruption and stuff. So it's a lot of like cause and effect throughout the story, you know?
I'm a big fan of the way that Jeff Loeb writes Batman too, like his inner monologue when he's talking about his father's house. I thought that was a nice touch. Like, I think at one point, is it in this or in Dark Victory, where he realizes he's older than his father? I can't remember. No, it has to be later on. It has to be in another in Hush maybe. And he's like, I still call it my father's house.
And if we look at the artwork of him in his home, so obviously the mansion has to be huge because it's a mansion, or so I assume. I wouldn't know. I don't have a mansion, but those panels, they make him so tiny, right? They make him feel childlike, whereas in most of the other panels, he's dominating the frame, and I just, that felt very right, because I think we all reach that point where we realize that like we're older than our parents were when they had us, or when they, and it was a very real moment for him.
You're absolutely right. I'm so glad you pointed that out, because the doors are drawn bigger, like when he's in the home by himself, because it is a very lonely way of living. So, yes, I haven't read the new special that just came out. I know Odefel and Johnny have, but I haven't read it yet. So, yeah, there it is. So, hey, hold that up again if you don't mind. Is that just the one shot then?
Yeah, it is, and this is the variant cover. I'm gonna pick up the base back home in Chicago when I get back, but yeah, this one is the variant.
Tyler, we're not talking about Arkham Asylum. We're talking about Long Halloween. Wrong book.
I will say, reading the one shot directly after I finished just the Long Halloween, I was really let down by it. I feel like it kind of focused on all the weaker points of the story in a way that I think it was better left to just the Long Halloween, in my opinion. But, it's a one shot, so overall it really doesn't impact too crazy much. I don't know.
Yeah, but Johnny knows how me and him are as being collectors. If this is not included in the next release of the Absolute, I'm going to be pissed.
Well, why didn't they just wait? I don't get this one.
Oh, you know why. You'll know why, because 2 years from now, it'll be the special deluxe edition that me and your dumb ass are going to buy. That's why.
Well, and I'm going to sell it, so you know what? This benefits me, so I shouldn't complain. Good point.
So there is a follow-up to this, by the way. Somebody mentioned it, but we are not going to talk about it tonight, and that is Dark Victory. Dark Victory works as like the third in the trilogy of Batman, Haunted Knight, Long Halloween, and Dark Victory. Dark Victory is like Batman Year 3, Robin Year 1. It's a solid series, and there is a follow-up to this story where he leaves it as a cliffhanger back to the killer. So I thought that was cool, but we're just dissecting this particular volume here.
If I can ask the ladies a quick question. Both of you read this for the first time, I believe. So did you read it in one shot, no pun intended, or did you break it up into chapters or segments? How did you, because the first time I read it, I just sat and plowed through it in like an hour and a half. How did you do it?
Odefel, do you want to start?
Sure, yeah. So I sat and I just read it in one chunk. I watched both parts of the movie yesterday because I wanted to watch it first and then read it.
Why?
And like kind of appreciate the movie more, because I feel like when I do it reversed, usually I'm a lot more critical. So I sat and I just read it this afternoon all the way through, and then end capped it with the one shot.
I started it last night, and then I fell asleep because I was like, oh, look, it's the first time that I haven't pulled an all-nighter in a couple of days. So my body broke down, and then I woke up early and finished it this morning.
Okay, not bad. How about you, Omar? Do you remember did you read it as it came out in single issue?
No,
I'm trying to call you out and being older than me. I'm just asking.
No, this is gonna make me sound older. When that was coming out, I was leaving comics because I had found out
that makes sense.
And
okay.
So that was, oh my goodness, 1996. I was a senior, and yeah, I was leaving comics behind. Eventually, of course, I came back, but I knew about the story because they made a big deal. It was like posted. I was still working at the comic book store when this was coming out. It was just posted everywhere that Tim Sell and Jeff Loeb were going to be reunited to do this, and it was selling like crazy because I knew how many copies we were selling.
Right.
I didn't read it until I came back to comics. I found a beat up trade paperback of it.
Okay.
And I loved it.
So I actually often forget that it was written in 1996 because it fits so damn seamlessly with Batman Year 1. Like, I know they're not written back to back, like that never crosses my mind, but sometimes I'm like, man, that's a pretty big gap. And like, personally, I think a lot of comics, as you're saying, kind of dip after like 1993, 94, something like that. So to have something of this quality coming out at that time, like, this has to be one of the better books of that like 5-year period.
Oh,
like, in the
yeah,
late
people
90s.
Man, people that collect comics, they always like to say they dismiss the 90s. Like, everybody throws the 90s into one label. Bad art, big pouches, big big boobs, big muscles, stupid stories. But there was some gold in those years, man. There's Hitman, there's Transmetropolitan, Preacher, and I can go on, but this is definitely one of them towards the later part of the 90s.
Right. Well, and the artwork, even though it's like it's so unique, like it doesn't necessarily look of that later 90s era. Like it does, I can't pinpoint what era it looks like because it's so unique, but I don't look at it and think like, well, I'm turned off, because some of that late 90s artwork does turn me off, and this doesn't do that to me. So it's a very interesting piece of material. It really is.
You know, that is one thing I wanted to go back or start talking about is the art, because I have a really good friend of mine, and I'm not going to call him out, that hates Tim Sale. Hates Tim Sale's artwork.
Mm.
I think in my younger days, maybe when I was younger, big into Jim Lee and Will Spartasio, Todd McFarlane, Mark Silvestri, those guys, I could kind of see myself not digging this. But I also didn't dig Steve Ditko, Jack Kirby, or Mike Mignola, or all the greats, you know? I was more of this 90s type of art because it was in your face and it was what was hot at the time. I don't think I would have dug this as much, especially, and honestly, there are some rough parts of this. I'm not, even now looking at it, when there's not a lot of use of shadows, his Batman looks a little rough from time to time. But I did want to hear, you know, let's hear from the two ladies that this is your first time reading it, right, Oddfell?
Yes.
Okay. So what did you think about this? I know you're familiar with you have read stuff by Tim Sale, but what did you think about the artwork?
I actually really liked it. I don't tend to like more minimalist art in comics unless it's really stylistic in a way that sells the book. Like a lot of times I'm turned off by books that are too black and white or just too simple, but with this feeling like a gangster noir piece, the art really makes it timeless. Like this could have come out in 2006. This could have come out in 2018. Like it feels very timeless because it's simple and because it just works with the story and the tone. I feel like there's times where I'm like, okay, this feels 90s, but overall, for the most part, like it really gives the vibe of like a detective noir piece and a murder mystery.
I think that's such a good point, and I think that's why I enjoyed the art as well, because it felt it had that look to it of something that the blacks and whites are really sort of distinct, right? Because that's kind of what film noir is about. But it also had throwbacks, you know, and it's hard to, for me at least, to read something that's about mafia and not look for influences from things like The Godfather. And I felt like that was in there in some of the choices and sort of the oversaturation, particularly of the wedding scene, right? You can't have a mafia wedding scene and not be like, the first 30 minutes of Godfather. So I had very little problems with that. I also thought it was just beautiful. So I read it on my Kindle, and Kindle's like, we have so many options for you. If you want, you can completely remove yourself from the experience and tap panel by panel. And I was like, oh, that's a decision. And I tried that for like 10 pages, and I was like, but I'm not getting to see how the panels fit together. And that felt really, it was an interesting decision, Kindle. And so I actually went back and restarted those pages because I realized much of the beauty is in the larger page configuration. But I do definitely have problems with Selena. I just thought she looked a little janky.
Define janky.
She looked like Michael Jackson.
How dare you? He was.
I know.
Wow.
Well, and there were times I just kept waiting for her to have one white glove on, like as they were dancing.
Okay, Selena, not Catwoman, right?
So yes, Selena. Now, Catwoman I found adorable, but that's because I like cats like Oriental short hairs, which if you need to Google what an Oriental short hair is, you should, because they're the ones with the really big ears, and you're like, you're so unfortunate. Come home with me, adorable cat. So I'm not sure that she was supposed to be someone that I enjoyed the appearance of, but I did. So I didn't have a problem with Catwoman, but I did have a problem with Selena.
I never liked this Catwoman. And I don't know what it was about. And it totally makes sense, right? Like the way he draws her really muscular, like her arms are really buff. Totally makes sense for somebody like that to be completely cut. But I don't know what it was about it. Maybe it was the whiskers. I don't know. That's one character I didn't dig.
Yeah, the face of her mask is different than it usually is.
I gotta say real quick, I never thought it, but yeah, that does. I get Michael Jackson. I get the vibe. I see it in this panel. Right?
Yeah.
Tim Sale's Selena looks like Michael Jackson cosplaying Elektra.
I'm so used to seeing her with short hair and kind of being a lot more sleek that I feel like seeing her almost drawn, almost how they draw like Death and the Sandman stuff, just completely jarred me. Like Catwoman was still on par, but she just felt so different than the rest of the art style.
Yeah, I can see that. I actually liked his Selena. Oh, you mean Catwoman? Catwoman. Sorry. Yes, it was the Catwoman that I had the issues with. I love the color tones that they use in this. Very simple. You know, it's funny that both of you said noirs, because there is a black and white version of this. It's called Long Halloween Noir.
Oh.
So the art is available in just black and white, which is cool.
I feel like the
Totally
color
right.
use. Sorry, I feel like the color use is so intentional in this, though, that you would lose so much. Because there's so many scenes that there's only like one color or like one thing in focus. It's like the color use in this is so thoughtful, I guess is the word.
Yeah, that is true. I forgot about that because usually when there's a death, right? There's like one thing. Very artsy, very why in the hell do I always go with Human Centipede 2 instead of, Schindler's List? Like,
yeah, I was gonna say that's an interesting
but no,
choice.
I go with the color in Human Centipede. Anyway, Schindler's List, very Schindler's List. I like it. It's artsy.
I would have actually enjoyed seeing that more if they had dedicated a color for each holiday and really made that be just the dominant color throughout. I think they try it, and I think they start to get better when they start to go to like, what is it? What is the leprechaun holiday called again?
St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day. Thank you.
St. Patrick's Day.
But it's tricky when St. Patrick's Day is poison ivy and then the Riddler is also green. So that didn't, that would have been hard to do. But I would have liked to have seen more of that.
I think they did it for the covers, didn't they? Like the covers are in the back of this book, but the covers have just like a couple of colors. I think they were really, really like digging hard for like what did they do, like Arbor Day? I don't think it was an Arbor Day, did they?
No, but I wanted them to.
I was like, they're gonna run out of holidays, man. The Roman holiday, that was the one that they hit that I thought,
Yeah, that was pretty creative, the Roman one.
I don't know. It seemed like they missed some holidays, right? Because they didn't do Easter. And they could have done that. They could have done that with the Mad Hatter easily enough. Or I really would have been behind an Arbor Day. Because there are holidays. Yes, I want to know what Arbor Day is. I still don't fully understand it. And I needed the Batman episode.
That would have been a good Poison Ivy Day, but instead they used her for St. Patrick's.
Yeah.
Guinness Appreciation Day. Thank you, Colin. So yeah, we did mention the Calendar Man, but then there was somebody else that showed up. And who was that, Johnny? Who's the other?
Are we talking Joker? Who are we talking here?
I'm talking about Holiday.
Oh, Holiday. Oh,
Yeah.
You mean the main killer, that guy or girl, him or her? We don't know. Yeah, man, they just show up and start off, and people starting off with Johnny Vitti, the nephew of Carmine Falcone, man. Pretty ballsy move to just kill that dude's nephew. So when you read it the first time, were you like trying to figure it out as it went along? Like when he got killed, were you like, oh, this person makes sense to be the murderer? Like, or did you wait till the end? How did you all break it down?
I thought I had figured it out, and then my guy got killed. And then
Who did you think it was?
I thought it was the nephew, I think, that was trying to take over. Who's the one that died on the boat?
The son.
That's the son.
The son. Okay.
Wait, but that is him. That is who the killer. What do you mean you thought that? That is who the killer is.
That's who I thought it was. But is it the killer?
I think he's one of them. I think there's a
I
couple.
think there's
2, 3-ish.
Yeah, 2, 3-ish.
Okay. Here's the big question: was Harvey Dent actually one of the killers? Because here's the thing: if he is, and he makes a lot of sense to be, it ruins the whole narrative that kind of Omar was talking about, where you're building character, where he's the White Knight from Dark Knight. He's the one who wouldn't break the rule, even though like it shows or it seems like he will. So that's the only thing that keeps me from saying he was definitely the first killer, is that it ruins the integrity of his character. What do you think of that?
I think that he considers himself potential. So in the book, he's like, don't you get it? There's two. I don't know if he knows about both or if he feels like since he carried out the last one and potentially one of the other last ones, he considers himself one. But I think it's one of the two. I don't think he did very many of the killings. He either considers it because he did the last one or I don't know. I feel like he didn't.
That's a common theory online, so you're not far off. Like, a lot of people do think he was referring to himself on the second Halloween killing Carmine as being the second holiday killer.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the point where Gilda thinks he took over was probably when the son took over, because he probably like faked his own death, and then that's kind of how I took it.
Yeah, I read it similarly for the very reason, Johnny, like you said, that if we don't read it that way, then it kind of undermines how we're supposed to interpret Harvey and how we're then supposed to interpret Two-Face. Although there is something, if you do think that it was both Harvey and Gilda, there is this it's like Gift of the Magi, right? Where, the story where like the one woman cuts her hair to buy a watch chain for her husband, but he sold his watch to buy combs for her hair. One of my least favorite stories of all time, because it's like all you had to do was talk to each other. But there is something kind of beautiful about like, I'm killing for you, honey. Me too. But it doesn't make sense. It really just doesn't.
Right. Well, okay, so do you all buy into what they give you as the ending that Gilda's the killer? Because in my mind,
I'm curious how I wish Orfel had read it before watching the movie, because I'm interested to see what both of you had thought about the ending. Because, reading this for the first time, I don't think there wasn't YouTube, there wasn't Wikipedia was still new. I think there were forums, but there were usually angry old people in the forums, and I didn't want to ask. It was me and a bunch of comic book guys at the store trying to figure out the story, right? Because I had questions. What did you two think after reading this? Did you think like, oh, this is the definitive killer? Or did you think, I wonder if they'll tie up these loose ends?
Katie, I will let you go first because I watched it, so I have a weird perspective.
Yeah, so I had thought pretty early on that they were going to set Alberto up to be Holiday, because anytime you have a son who's like, Dad, I have great ideas, and he's like, not now, kiddo, that person is guaranteed to come back into a greater force. And then the way that they depict his death scene just felt off compared to the other death scenes, not just because he was pushed overboard, but it just like it didn't match up as well with the holidays. It didn't fit as right. So it's like, it is him. And then, and then they're like, but wait, no, it's at least also Gilda. And then they were like, remember how she wasn't always in the panels, so she could have done it? That seemed a really weak sort of like way of explaining it. I don't think they set her up to be an interesting enough Holiday, but I'm not really sure that they set up most of the female characters to be an interesting enough killer. Let's talk about Barbara Gordon and how she's always like, it's okay, honey, that you've missed out on another moment in my life. And she's like legitimately like, it's okay. So I don't know. I really struggle with the ending, not because Johnny, I think like you have like actual like moral objections to it. I just don't feel like they supported their work.
I feel that. So watching it first, I was really excited to read it because the movies, in my opinion, flushed out all the female characters way more thoughtfully and way more thoroughly. Barbara and Gilda have more of a dynamic because both of them are upset that their husbands are always gone. Gilda herself has much more of an internal struggle. She's not just wanting to settle down and start a family and get a house. She's really off-put by the idea of starting a family, and there's this whole kind of thing where you're like, okay, what's going on with that? And then you find out she went to Oxford, and there's all these layers that ends up mounting to her having an actual motive that's thought out and well done. So when it got to that point in the movie, I was like, oh wow, this was really well fleshed out, this was really well written. They also changed her monologue to not just being to no one like Batman's there, because of course he figured it out. In the movie, he's a little better of a detective by the end. But I think that I absolutely bought it in the movie because they sold it better. She wasn't as much of a non-existent character, I guess I would say, because she's really not in the book that much. Also, I was really shocked when Alberto came back, because in the movies he gets super dead and they show it. So that
I
was
was actually
kind
going
of
to say, when you were mentioning that that his death is different, that's one of the other things. I was paging through to make sure. It's the only death where they don't show a body. So, suspicious from the get-go.
Yeah, and they do in the movie, because I would say, like, it's pretty similar. I would say the middle third from, like, New Year's. No, I would actually say from Poison Ivy to July 4th is absolutely condensed into, like, 2 minutes. But then it's pretty back on pace, having a lot of references and stuff. But then the endings diverge because Alberto doesn't come back, and they were building up Gilda a lot more. So when I came to read it, I was really shocked that they still went with her, because it just felt so out of nowhere. She had no motive or anything compared to before.
Well, that's why I always took it as she's crazy. Like, to me, I think that's the red herring. Again, like, there's unfortunately no real definitive answer, but, like, when you go back and read it a second time and you're like, okay, is she the killer right now? It's like you're trying to believe that, like, when she was in the hospital, she wasn't really that injured. She got out of the hospital and went and killed a bunch of gangsters.
Right?
And it's like, what? Like, are you kidding? I don't know. And they also, like, say, well, it was probably somebody who could get close to these people who died. And it's like, why would she have the ability to get closer to these people than, like, her husband would have a better shot getting close? I don't know. It just, some of it's weird. I don't know. You're right. Like, when I read the ending the first time, like, I was genuinely like, what? It was her? Like, I didn't suspect her, because they don't set it up, like you're saying, anywhere near as how they do in the film.
Yeah, it's interesting because the movie both does a better job and a worse job of portraying the story. Like, the whole first act is almost exactly ripped. I mean, lines, panels, everything. But then when it starts to diverge, it focuses on other things. Like, the book focuses more on the different holidays. The movie focuses more on characters. And that's kind of where it spins off. And I like both as tellings of it for two very different reasons. And if you like the book, I'd absolutely suggest watching it.
Well, sometimes it's better to have it be different than the book, because if it's a direct, representation, what's the point? Sometimes I wonder, like, if there's nothing different.
Here's something I've always wondered after reading this a few times, because we've done this on Old Reader, New Reader.
And I watched that in my deep dive, by the way.
Oh, thank
100%.
you.
Yeah, man. I went back and rewatched it like 2 years after you filmed it.
2 or 3 years ago. But anyway, I wonder if Loeb changed it. If, like, on the internet, people had figured out who the killer was and he changed it. Because that's what happened to the ending of this rather crappy DC crossover called Armageddon 2001. Long before we had Twitter, Facebook, the internet, forums, it had broken out on the early this is 1991. So there was communication on the internet was a lot different then, but they had figured out who Monarch was, which was the villain, and I'm not going to spoil it, of Armageddon 2001. So they changed it. They changed who Monarch was, which pissed a lot of people off. So I wonder if that's something that happened with this. I can't imagine Jeff Loeb going back and saying, I'm going to rewrite this, because it just doesn't seem like his type of thing to do, just based on, the books that he's written. He's never had to rewrite anything. He's Jeff Loeb. He's coming out of movies, right? He's going to be like, screw you, I'm Jeff Loeb. I wrote Teen Wolf. I don't have to change the ending of this. Do you know who I am? But I don't know. It may feel like that after a few read-throughs.
I think so. I often am not a fan of ambiguity. I often think it's usually a sign of, like, laziness on an author's part, because they're like, I don't want to have to decide what the thing is that you want to, so reach into the bag and whatever you pick out. I think that's oftentimes how ambiguity is done, or why it's done. But in this case, I actually didn't have a problem with it, because I thought that what it was really saying was that in many respects, it doesn't matter who the hands are that shot the gun, because, and some people are commenting on this in the chat, like everyone's crazy, right? And this goes back to what you were saying at the beginning, Omer, that like there's something about Batman that is serving as this magnet, even to Bruce Wayne himself, that everyone in Gotham is just a little not right. And that in these holiday moments, like, what do you have to celebrate in Gotham? Gotham is a terrible place. And yet they're having these moments of revelry constantly, very much to like hide the fact that, you know, the Black Death is upon them. And so I just kind of interpreted it as saying like, everyone's the killer. Everyone has the potential to be the killer in Gotham if this is the Gotham that we have, right? This moment.
That's a good way of seeing it. Yeah. And honestly, it's a case of, you know, she was there all along, right? So that kind of makes sense, especially when the big revelation is there, and it ends with the "I believe in Harvey Dent," which takes us back to the beginning.
There was one theory I read online a while back that I thought was really interesting, and rereading it this most recent time, I had it in mind. So specifically the scene where they involve the Riddler, right? And Falcone is like really pressuring him. Riddler drops a line that says that there's no riddle that he can't solve, right? He says that like in this dialogue. And then Falcone's like, okay, man, well then who's the killer? And Riddler says, you. And then Carmine laughs it off. And it seems like a throwaway line. But this theory I read was like, well, what if Riddler was right? He just said in the dialogue, there's no riddle I can't solve. And then when he's asked the question, he says, well, Carmine, you're the killer. And if you can read the book with that perspective, or even like that he's behind Alberto, that theory can make a lot of sense. It's really interesting. And I don't know, do you guys have any thoughts on that? I'm not saying I buy it, but I want to hear your thoughts on all these theories that I've read.
I like that, but in like almost a less direct way of looking at it, because like the Riddler looks at things like everything's a riddle or a puzzle, and if you think about it, Carmine's behind all the killings because they're all people attached to him, whether or not he's the killer or not. He's the linchpin of all the murders.
That's deep.
So if you were solving a riddle, what's the root of all these murders? I could see him making that jump, not even because he's the murderer, but because he's the factor almost.
But is that a riddle? That's what I was going to say.
But is that a riddle? You know, so like I could see it from a couple different ways.
That was really deep.
Yeah.
I like that, your answer.
It was. That was very
I wish
good.
I read that on the internet. I keep pointing in the wrong direction because my
I do the same thing.
Yeah. I don't know. You know what I'm trying to do.
I like that. I think it's cool.
Okay.
But that really shows you what a good movie / good book is, right?
Yes.
To have 20, how many years has it been since this was written? 1996?
25, man. This was the anniversary, 25th anniversary. That's why the one shot came out.
Yeah, let's not age ourselves.
That 10-year anniversary, man. I love the 10
Yeah, 10 years. 10 years. It goes to show you that 25 years later, people are still talking about this book and talking about who did it, making up theories. There's YouTube videos of people just talking about, well, I figured out who the real killer is, or Jeff Loeb confirmed. And I love that Jeff Loeb has never really stated who the killer was. I like that because it goes back to what Katie was saying, ambiguity, right? It makes sense. It doesn't matter. It changed the lives of Batman, Harvey Dent, and Commissioner Gordon forever.
Yeah.
And the killer's always out there. It's Gotham City. So I dig that.
What if it was a different killer each time?
But that would be nice.
That
I like
also
that.
Makes sense. I just made that up. I don't know. I just thought that up.
So who would it be? Tell us more.
Well, the John Vitti one I find interesting because they talk about right in the beginning of the book that Carmine wanted him killed anyway before he decided to pay for his wedding. So, like, I don't know, Carmine kills him. I don't know. Who was the second death? Oh, those gangsters. See, damn, I'm not going back to Carmine, but it makes so much sense for Carmine to have those guys killed, even after they don't confess to him paying them to kill Gilda and Harvey, or try to. Oh,
or Gilda. She's mad.
When Harvey dresses up as the Irishman in the book, that was the one part I could not suspend my disbelief for. I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense. I hate that.
I was gonna add that I think going back to the idea that the nobody knows who the killer is. I think I highly recommend reading Dark Victory after reading this. And then I think it would be, if you're, God damn it, now you're making me think. If I had to go back and say, okay, who else could it be? I mean, anybody else could benefit from taking out all these families. Like any of the supervillains, like Joker. And Joker doesn't really, have to answer. He never answers to anybody. And he doesn't have to have a reason to kill people other than to take over Gotham. But yeah, I don't know. I like the idea that the book gave me the ending and I was satisfied with, and I'm okay with that.
I would have liked
after reading that one shot. I have to be too. What were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying. I want it for it to be really complicated. Like, no single one person alone committed any murder, right? Like, one person crafted the bullet and handed it to the person who filed off the gun. Like, I want it to be that everyone was involved. Everyone was involved in every murder, and it was just this really big, very elaborate deal. That's the ending I want someone to create a really intense internet post on.
Colin's asking if How Long Halloween is better than Three Jokers or Arkham Asylum. It's definitely, to me, better than Three Jokers. I'm not a fan of Three Jokers, especially if that's canon. I hate that idea.
What is Three Jokers?
It's kind of, it's a big spoiler, actually. So Jeff Johns gives us a definitive follow-up to one of the greatest Batman comics of all time, which is The Killing Joke. And The Killing Joke kind of throws the idea that any man can have a bad day and will forever change him, which is the idea of the Joker, what happened to the Joker. So it could be a possible origin to the Joker. Not that he ever needed one, but they kind of use that there. I love that. I love that about Alan Moore's Killing Joke, that maybe it could be. Doesn't matter. And the Jeff Johns, oh my goodness. Killing Joke was 86, and Jeff Johns wrote that a couple of years ago. So it took that long to do a follow-up to that. And he lives, and I don't want to ruin it for anybody.
Okay. That gives me enough. I just was like, I don't know what's happening.
It serves as a follow-up. It serves as the idea of how Joker can be around so many things. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Three Jokers. I've done a review with my wife on it. I wish it had been longer, and I wish more things had been explained. That's all I will say about that without going into spoilers. Is it better than Arkham Asylum, this Long Halloween? I think it's a lot easier to digest than Arkham Asylum. This is a basic whodunit story, so that's why I suggested this and not Arkham Asylum. I love Arkham Asylum. I think it's one of the best Batman stories. But when people think of Batman, like if I were to give like a kid like 12 years old, like, you want a good Batman story, I would suggest this over Arkham Asylum, because Batman in Arkham Asylum is so different than here. Batman gets his ass handed to him by like a normal dude in Arkham Asylum. Batman can't figure jack shit out in Arkham Asylum. And he starts questioning what if any of this is real. It's a good story. I love Arkham Asylum, but I think it benefits from the fact that maybe, got to have a little bit under that belt of reading some Batman to appreciate it. Because if you're going in there thinking, oh, Batman is summoned to Arkham, he's going to go kick some ass. No, he doesn't. It's a breakdown of the character. It's amazing, but it's not what a lot of people would expect from a Batman story. Kate, as your first read-through of a comic book, what did you think? Is it like reading a storyboard for a movie? Like, what did you think about this?
Yeah, so the reason I haven't read much in graphic form is that I don't know how long I'm supposed to spend on the art, which I realize is like,
that's adorable.
It really shows that I have lots of really unusual and unnecessary anxieties. But I think what it is that I write, right? So You know, I'm constantly writing, even if it's just academic stuff, I'm constantly writing. So I know how long that spends and so, to take to do that. And so even though I read fast, I don't feel bad. But like, I look at art that I can't do and I'm like, look at that cross hatching. How long do I stare at this cross hatching? Is it okay to move on from the cross hatching? And so actually, to go back to something Oldfield said about the sort of more simplistic art forms that we're getting, that was actually helpful to me because I didn't feel the need to stare at the shadowing as much as I would have. I really liked this. I think one of the reasons I've hesitated to get into any of the bigger worlds is that it feels like I don't know where I'd even begin. And I realize your show answers that question, but like where would I even begin? And also I don't have the strength to wait every month. Yeah, but like, any of these characters, like, should I have started with year one? And but I felt like I didn't need to know anything more than I did about Batman to be able to understand the story, to have it make sense. I've always appreciated the way that Batman is dark and maybe not the best at what he does, but gosh darn it, he's going to try. I do want to know at some point why Johnny, who has clearly obviously read way more than I have, like why this is your favorite out of all of them.
That is a good question. But let me answer this question really quick. Someone needs to ask Omar the hard question. Which one is better, Long Halloween or Year 2? So a little history behind that. Long Halloween, this book right here, retconned Year 2, meaning Year 2 is no longer in Batman continuity. And a lot of people that have watched my channel know that I love Year 2. It's one of my favorite Batman stories, and I stand by that. Which is better? Through the eyes of 10-year-old Omar, Year 2 is miles better than this garbage. Adult Omar in his 40s. Oh my God, this book is so much better than Year 2. But back then, you had Todd McFarlane on art, and you had Mike W. Barr writing the story. If not for Year 2, I'll say it over and over. I don't care. We would not have Mask of the Phantasm, which is the best Batman movie. And you had Alan Davis on art. Thank you, James. That is a hard question to answer. Kate, or who was talking? Somebody.
I'm asking Johnny a question. I want to know why this is your favorite of all of them.
I think because, okay, so I read it last year for the very first time, probably literally like this week 1 year ago, right? And so I was 30 at the time, and I had genuinely gone like all 30 years of existence not knowing like any of the spoilers. Like I avoided them because I just knew it was like the best or one of the best Batman stories according to the internet. So when I read it, I kind of went into it thinking like, okay, this is supposed to be like the best. And I really got entrenched in like the whodunit aspect. And like, I was shocked by the ending. So like, objectively, like looking at it, like it's supposed to be one of the best Batman stories. It hooked me onto the whodunit aspect. I did not guess the killer on my own. Like all those components really made it a great story. Like, and when I've read other Batman ones, like Omar's saying, like Year 2, like maybe at a time in my life that would have been really cool. But like I read that as an adult for the first time and was like, okay, that was a Batman story. And it was a story that had Batman. This, it just drew me in. Reading it the second time this year didn't have the same effect. I can admit it. But that first time, it just, everything about it mixed well. So that's the answer.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And I went the deep dive I did, man, my wife thought I was going crazy, man. She was like, is this a real murder mystery? What are you doing? So like, I really got into figuring out who it was. So it was just really fun for me.
I want that to be a podcast that's like, it's a true crime, but it's you just trying to solve Long Halloween. And you're like, it's just like you working through it.
I would listen to a crazy dude, like thinking it's all real, that Batman's real. And yeah, I would listen to that.
You know the meme of Charlie from It's Always Sunny where he's like doing all the that was me, like, but so hard. That's all I'll say. Go on, Omar. Sorry, man.
I feel it though, because I don't read a whole lot of Batman. I read a lot more Batman and Batman adjacent books when I started comics. But as I got into it and as I got further into Batman stuff, it didn't really have what I was looking for from Batman because I grew up with like the animated series and stuff. And I feel like this book had more of that feeling. It was a lot more crime in the rogues gallery and all the aspects of Batman that you kind of want to see in Batman brought back. Because I feel like there's so much oversaturation of Batman lately and for a while and definitely currently in DC that it's hard to weed out what's what kind of Batman anymore. There's so many different tones of Batman, where this one, at least for me, I agree with you, is very like what I want to see from a Batman story.
All right. So, out of 10, what would everybody rate Batman: The Long Halloween? Ladies first. How about we go?
Yeah, please don't pick me first.
Okay. Kate, go first. Oh, you said don't pick.
I said don't pick me first.
All right. For me, I'll go first then. I said ladies first, but I'll give you a minute to think about it. For me, this is one of the greatest Batman stories. It's aged well. I love the art. It grew on me. The older I get, the more I appreciate it. There are very few Batman stories that I think, in my opinion, are better than this for an all-in-one, said and done Batman story. Yes, you can continue it into Dark Victory, but you don't really have to. It's all in there. So for me, man, 9.5 out of 10. It's wonderful. It's a classic for a reason. I don't know what I gave it, an old reader, new reader. Do you remember, Johnny? Give it like
I think you said it was just okay, man. I was so
shut up. I didn't know. It's
remember
great,
watching it,
man.
and
It's
I'm
great.
like,
I
oh,
would
she's
not.
saying
I'm going to go
fantastic.
back and smack that asshole in the face. That's
Please
not
do.
what I said.
Give it
All
away
right.
from me.
Johnny, since this is your favorite story of all time, what would you give this out of 10?
11 out of 10, man.
11
Like,
out
are
of
you
10.
kidding me?
Doesn't come close to anything else. Okay.
Yeah.
Oatfill.
I think I preferred the movie a little more, so I'm trying to like decide if I want to compare it to the movie to rate it, or if I want to just do it isolated.
Isolated.
But even then, I'd probably still give it an 8.5 or a 9. It would fluctuate between those two just because I like the characterizations of some of the characters way better in the movie, but even then it's floating around an 8.5 to a 9 regardless of if I'm comparing it.
Fair enough. All right, Kate. Moment of truth. First comic book that you've ever graded in your life.
Yes.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Okay.
It's hard to answer because it really does depend on what I'm measuring it up against, right? So if I'm thinking about it as a film noir, then it has certain things that I think are perfect for film noir, but film noir is not my genre, right? Like that's not the genre that I turn to for just a casual night in. Because character development is not where it's at, right? And so I'm trying to think, because a lot of what I read is series that have, like by book 12, I know this entire person's backstory, and that's not the point of this. So I'm wrestling with what my usual style is and preference versus the goodness of this. So yeah, it's probably going to be somewhere between an 8.5 to 9, maybe closer to a 9, because it might not be my usual cup of tea, but I'm so glad I drank it.
Wow, way to pull that. I'm so glad I drank it. I like that. Yeah, so I mean, it's a great story. I can't say I've met a lot of people that hate this story or don't like it or don't think this is one of the most definitive Batman stories, because it's everything you need from a Batman story, minus Robin, right? It's all in there.
And I will say that Johnny had pointed out that it reads more cinematically. So as someone that does a lot of film, that was easier for me too, because I've tried reading From Hell a couple of times.
Oh, Alan Moore's. Oh, yeah,
God. And every time I've been like, is this what I'm willing to do for the next long while? Whereas this did have that cinematic element. And so it was aesthetically pleasing, not just in terms of the form, but the content was laid out aesthetically as well. And so it just worked. It worked in a way that I'm not sure. I don't know if I think you may have spoiled me, Omer. Like I may never be able to go back and just casually open up another graphic novel without like judging it against the good things of this one. So
right. Yeah. Well, let me tell you something. From Hell is a better graphic novel than a movie. I will say that.
Well, that's not hard. So.
No, I like the movie. I thought the movie was great, and we can talk about this another night. But I think the book is phenomenal because there's things you can do in this medium that you cannot do in any other medium. That's what I love comic books, because there's things you can do in here that you can't do anywhere else. Video games, live Broadway shows. I don't know why I went there, but movies, just can't do them. All right, so let's have our giveaway. We're giving away a copy of Batman, the Long Halloween Deluxe Edition, provided by Dying Breed Collectors. All right, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to ask a question for those people that are, this episode is not sponsored by Blue Moon, Shonda, so I wish it was. They can just send me cases. Just send me cases. We're going to ask a question, and all you got to do is answer in the chat. We're not going to do a random number generator like we normally do. We're going to pick the best answer, all right? All right, so get your fingers ready, because there is no Google or Wikipedia answer, because we want to know your opinion. We're going to go with, we're going to pick an answer based on wit and what we all agree with. So it doesn't have to be the right answer, but all right. What kind of question would you all like to ask? We didn't discuss this ahead of time. I probably should have. No, we didn't. Okay.
Something Halloween related. Oh,
yeah,
I
something
know.
Halloween.
Wait, what are you dressing up as Halloween? And we're going to pick the best costume.
There we go.
That's easy.
The
I'm
more,
here for that.
The more perverted, the better. The more politically incorrect, the better.
Have you
These
seen
are
the
the
meme?
so fast?
Have you seen the cute couple Halloween costume meme where it's bees and then the little boy from My Girl?
That's terrible.
That's awesome.
I love it so much. I'm like, these are the jokes I'm behind for what it's worth.
All right, so think witty, think funny. That's what we're going for. All right, so we're gonna pick the best answer out of whoever. All right, so we're gonna let them populate here in a second for anybody that's watching live. Remember, this is live, so don't leave a comment later. As I'm looking at comments, and I'm like, that's it. It was live, man. Dressing up as Omar, dressing up as Nightwing. I kind of dig that.
It's a meta.
Not funny,
Yeah,
but I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, this is serious though. Deadpool mask, daughter's tutu, and my charming pencil personality. I like that. I'm going as one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. Yeah, I'm not wearing my prosthetic leg. I can't tell with that picture if you're serious or not. I'm going to sexy Galactus. Galactus. I like that. Galactus hungers for that ass. I like that.
Oh man.
I will be the telephone pole that decapitates a little girl in the Hereditary. That's a good couple's costume right there. The telephone pole and the girl's face from Hereditary. A single mother who can't get a babysitter.
So sad.
It's pretty hot. Not really. What if you ain't dressing up? You then come up with something, man. Google funny costumes.
If you could dress up, then what would you dress up as?
Yeah. Winter Soldier, but only because I already have a metal arm made in Russia, so it's not a stretch. Batman.
Makes a lot of sense.
Dead Robin killed by phone-in. I really like that. That's awesome, especially if you read the code. That's really good. I like that. But best Halloween costume: a blind pilot with a walking stick. I've never seen that one. Wow. I've grown my hair out for about 2 years. Definitely going as Jesus Christ. Nicholas the Great. I'm dressing up as Selena, dressed up as Michael Jackson.
That's the one that wins it for me.
Oh man, that's a good one. That's a good one.
You were paying attention the whole show.
I'm not Daredevil. I'm just wearing my normal clothes. My costume is a handsome fella. That's what I'm going as. That's all. The Omni dog. Every day is Halloween for me. Dressing up as Omar with his Trunks haircut and vest. The NMC lore, my man. Those were the days. I'm serious. I have a fake leg. Okay, I'm not laughing.
Wow, we integrated into
That's
the costume,
awesome, man. Good for you. And if you ever dressed up like that, that would be freaking awesome, Tyler. Dead ghost of the baby of Batman plus the Joker, who goes back in time to become a real holiday killer because of the horrible upbringing. Please, someone get me more obscene than that. Did we go for obscene? Naked Nick Fury. Which one? Samuel L. Jackson or David Hasselhoff? Oh, man. Technically, I'm going as Giyu Tomioka from Demon Slayer. But if you want Rachi, I can go as Bunny Bulma. Bunny Bulma. I'm going to have to Google that.
It's like a little black bunny with ears and the Dragon Balls.
No, I thought it was a character. I was like, I'm not up to date with my anime and my manga. I thought it was a new character. Bunny Bulma is hot, by the way. Mystique
Yes.
transformed us Alf. You are dead to me, Dream Eater. Sexy Walter.
Please do. Please.
Dressing up as a life-size penguin carrying a busted up box of damaged comic books. Penguin Random House.
That one hit home.
Wow.
I like
Wait,
that one a lot.
that definitely wins.
That's a deep cut. I love it.
But if you win, I'm sending you a damaged copy. That's the
The corner's bent, but it doesn't count as damages.
Alfred
Exactly,
Bizarro. I'm
right.
loving all these answers. Alfred Bizarro, the Invisible Man. I'm not leaving the house. Are you giving out candy though? Saul Good, dressing as the real killer in the Long Halloween, which was Jeff Loeb. Good man. Vegeta with his pink bat. Dude, I used to have a pink bat. What the hell did I do with that? It was a t-shirt, so it didn't really count because he had the button-up shirt with the short sleeves. All I had was a t-shirt. I think I wore it one time. An omnibus with a broken spine. Yeah, I think Roy's got that one. Phantom Stranger. Come on, Doc Holliday. Something as hot as the night of Johnny V's wedding. I work for the state, so I'll be going as government zombie. What are you doing down here, kid? It is way past your bedtime.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No. It's
Yeah,
not.
no, all right, give me a kiss. Good night.
I go to bed at 10.
All right, give me a kiss and go to bed.
No, it's 9.
All right, we'll watch The Simpsons after. We're almost done. We're almost done. We're almost done. A Blue Moon, sponsored by the Uncanny Omar. Won't be need to go out for a costume. Actually, I'm pretty sure the I'm Not Daredevil was a sweater, not a shirt. One of Moon Knight's personalities. Michael Vick as a veterinarian. I'm going as the guy who has to work on Halloween, getting asked, where's the Halloween section? Oh, I'm so sorry. If Nick Fury's wearing an eye patch, is he really naked? Good point. Good point.
Really?
Fury never takes off his patch.
It's just his gun holster.
He does have holes. Oh man, the way Steve Ditko drew that sex scene between him and Contessa, that's hot. I'm dressing up as Fiona Staples and handing out copies of fake continuation of Saga issues. Ouch! Shots fired. Shots fired. All right, guys. What's your pick? I'm gonna let you all pick, so I don't want to get judged for this. What's the funniest one? What's the one that you all enjoyed the most?
So there were a lot I didn't understand, so I was fake laughing. I was like,
You're really good at that. You're really good at fake laughing.
Thank
Wait
you
a
so
minute.
much.
You laugh a lot at my jokes.
I do laugh a lot at your jokes.
What the hell, man?
It's so funny.
Caught in the working.
I don't like when you say I'm so funny, though. All right.
So
What
for
do you guys
me,
got?
with that in mind, I do have to go with Selena as Michael Jackson cosplaying as Elektra because I was really understanding that one, but also clearly they were following that train to its terminal destination.
That was a good one. That was a good one. I like that Galactus, man. That Galactus.
You'd have to, I don't even know, someone would have to
You don't
explain
even
it
know
to
who
me.
Galactus is?
No.
All right. That's okay. What about YouTube? Oatfell, Dying Breed Collectors.
You go first, Sofa.
I have so much anger that honestly, Penguin with damaged books.
Okay.
Either that one or Selena as Michael Jackson as Elektra. Those are my top two.
Ooh.
I'm not sure I understand the Penguin reference. So someone's saying it's Penguin Random House, but I don't, is there something I'm missing? Clearly there is.
They're the new distributors for Marvel Comics, and there has been nightmare stories about their deliveries.
Oh,
I'm sure one of our retailers on the show could tell you,
okay.
or,
Okay.
or both of them, or both of them could tell you.
We've gotten books that are bent completely in half and crinkled, and they're like, oh, that doesn't count as damages. People will buy those. And I'm like,
Is that what they told you?
yeah, like we had a whole bunch that were really bad, and they're like, that doesn't count as damage. No. Like, so I don't know what they consider damage.
So wait, you're a retailer? I didn't know that.
I work at a retailer. I'm not.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I wish we could have polls in the chat. I wonder if
Oh, I wonder if you could do a poll. But yeah, like I am not a retailer, but I work.
No, but
for
you
it.
didn't
Like,
say
It's
that
good you
side of
said
it.
that because Johnny was like, it looks like he was about to become the holiday killer all over. He was like, do I need to take you out? So
Well-
you dodged that bullet.
I got about $4,000 worth of damaged Wolverine omnibuses sitting in my living room. So that's my.
oh,
the
That's all I'm gonna
spines
say.
of the trade paperbacks have been so bad lately. I can't.
Dude, I got a box. Oh man, I don't want to turn it into this, but I got a box of Epic collections that have no padding, and miraculously, like none of them were damaged. I mean, I would complain if they were damaged, and they weren't. But that's like a miracle, man. It's. I don't want to get into it.
No, I
That's a
feel
good
you.
answer,
Trust
though.
me. Trust me.
Yeah, I like the Electro one as the winner because I think that it shows that they were paying attention the whole time and they integrated the actual content of the show into the answer.
Now, Roy is being really sweet. He's overseas. You don't want me to win.
What part of overseas, man? That might change the answer. I'm just kidding. I'll send it overseas, dude. If it's one book like this, I can maybe find a way. But where do you live?
All right, Roy, where do you live? Thank you so much, by the way. And thank you to Die and Breed Collectors for sponsoring this.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Very, very cool. Very cool guy. Everybody go and check him out. He's got a great shop.
Nice.
Sexy Galactus. I'm with you, man. I like Sexy Galactus. No offense, Roy.
Who's
Do you want to do,
Galactus?
hey, do you want to do some type of like a runner-up prize for that in Penguin? We could. I don't know what it would be. I could send something else out for those guys if you want to do something. I could pick up 2 copies of this and we could send those out. I don't know if that counts. I don't mind. You want me to do that? I'm happy.
That's
to do it.
cool.
Oh, you're a cool guy, man. You're a cool guy.
Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Who's second runner up? You know what? I'm gonna let the ladies choose. I'm gonna let the ladies choose.
I will
Who's the
let
runner-up?
let Katie choose.
I mean, I still don't know who Galactus is, so so I can't tell you if that's a really clever idea.
All right.
I'll give you a TLDR of both. So, Galactus is like a world-eating celestial entity that goes through and just has this insatiable hunger to eat planets. So, Galactus,
Nice.
but he's coming for the booty.
Okay.
And then the other one is like Penguin with damaged books because, oh my god, just anything in the retail sphere right now has been chaos. So that's the TLDR of both.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I'm gonna like become independently wealthy just so I can hire you to like summarize things for me because that was exactly what I needed. Yeah, people are judging me big time apparently for not knowing what Galactus is.
If you don't want comments, like it's not in the movies or anything, so.
Oh,
you're fine.
excuse me. He was in the really shitty Fantastic Four movie, Part 2. He was like a cloud. He was a cloud.
So
I choose to believe otherwise.
Can both of them win? She says not being the one to pay for shipping, handling, or
I can send one to each because there's 2 different covers for the one shot, so each one can get a cover. I don't have the other one present, but I can get it easily.
All right.
I know people.
So Roy's being really sweet. He's in France.
Oh,
Okay.
That's exciting.
We're good, Roy. Have you ever read
What
this before? I don't know why I just shouted because he's in France, like he can't hear me. That was
It's
so
really
stupid.
far.
Have you read this before, Roy? I'm happy to send it to you, man. Let's make that happen. But yeah, have you read it before? You gonna own it for the first time? I hope so.
Johnny, can you go to France and have that be a business expense?
I could. I just can't afford it. But yeah, like technically that would be a business expense. You're right. You know
So
what
just
my
wait a
thing
couple
is,
of years.
Wherever
be like,
I am,
thanks
I
for
just
the
ask people
giveaway.
who their favorite X-Men is, and then it's a business expense. So cool.
Rise of the Silver Surfer. What a crappy movie. That's right. Yeah. All right. So, who is the winner? So
All of them.
So Roy gets the book.
Roy, congratulations. Die and Breed Collector's going way out of his way to ship the book to you. As a guy that just had to ship out over 30 items overseas, well, half of them were overseas. It's not cheap,
It's a lot.
and yeah, definitely, man. That's awesome. That's really cool. And who was the other winner for the single issue? Who'd y'all choose? I said ladies' choice, and Kate was like, I don't know. Galactus.
The Penguin and the sexy Galactus.
You got to choose 2?
Yeah. Johnny said that was okay.
Yeah, they each get a different cover for the one shot. One gets
Who
one.
was
the other
Sexy
gets the other.
Galactus? I can't remember that. That was a good one.
That was a
Loved
good
it.
one.
Let me find it. All right, so Penguin was Michael Lombardo, and Sexy Galactus. Let me find that really quick. Let me see if I can. I've worked for the state. Where is it? Anybody know who Sexy Galactus was?
Trying to
Please.
scroll back up. Let's see.
That's what I'm trying to do. Congratulations, Roy, and congratulations, Michael Lombardo. I think it's
It won't let me go past You with Blue Moon as a sponsor. And I think it was
Ben Unclease. Ben Unclease, everybody.
Oh, nice. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Ben Unclease is the other winner.
So the only caveat I'll say is I usually try to ship within 48 hours, but I am not going to be home for another week. So they're not going out till next week, but they're free. So, give it to me.
All three of those winners, if you can contact me, email us at, let me do this really quick, nearmintcon@gmail.com, and I'll get you in touch with Johnny, and we'll make sure those packages get out to you. And please be the real person, unlike the last show where a bunch of people claimed to be one of the winners. Oh. It was insane. But big congratulations to everybody. I'm glad that it was some of the people that I know that ended up winning. So that's really cool. Let's see here. Thank you so much. The Penguin or the Sexy Galactus wants to swap the package to France. Isn't too heavy. There's absolutely no problem. I understand shipping is crazy. Well, I'll let you talk about that amongst yourselves. But yes, email me, nearmintcondition, or what the hell was my email? That's what happens when I beer. nearmintcon@gmail.com. Now, let me do the outro. This lovely lady to my right here, it's my friend Kate. Go and check her stuff out. Kate, where can people find you when you're not hanging out with me dissecting an old comic book that's not horror-centric?
So wherever you listen to podcasts, it's Such a Nightmare. At Conversations About Horror. We also have a YouTube channel that has mainly just our audio, but we do have some video content. And then you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at NightmarePod1. I do a peekaboo Pennywise every time you can see the clown. It's like Where's Waldo, but with Pennywise. So, fun for the whole family.
Okay. And you also have social media, right? You're on.
I do. At NightmarePod1 is where Instagram and Twitter, Facebook, and then Such a Nightmare, Conversations About Horror. And your brother actually designed the little logo that is
my brother's a very talented guy.
He's incredibly talented. And I was like, make me this thing. And then he did. So
there you go. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure having you. Odfell, where can people find you when you're not hanging out with me dissecting movies usually?
Yes, I have the same username pretty much on anything. So I am on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook for cosplay primarily. The only thing is on Twitter, it's a 0 instead of an O because someone beat me to it. I also have a YouTube where I talk about costumes as well as like toy and statue unboxings and occasionally comics. And I usually try to link all of the shows that I'm on this channel in a playlist as well in case you want to catch up on that. So yeah, pretty much you can search this username on most social medias and it should bring me up.
All right. And Johnny, where can people find you selling stuff at?
DyingBreedCollectors.com. Out of print collected editions, discounted collected editions. We've got the Instagram, which I'm pretty up to date on, at Dying Breed Collectors with some underscores. And YouTube, Dying Breed Collectors, I post occasionally. Hey, Omar, thanks for letting me invite myself on your show, man. I appreciate that.
Me too.
Stop it. But thank you seriously for being kind enough to send those packages away, and and you've donated to our past stream, so it's my pleasure. You're a good guy.
It's my favorite show on the internet, man.
It's true. It's true. You haven't heard Kate's breakdown of horror movies, though.
But that's not really the internet. It's more just the airwaves. So you can have both of us be. What I'm trying to say is both of us can be your favorite.
Yeah.
And Odfell's my favorite cosplayer. So there we go.
There you go.
There you go.
and Odfell, when I search for you, I don't have to find like the symbol that's the O with the slash. I can just do a regular O.
Yep. Perfect. It should bring it up for everything, even YouTube. So just with the regular O.
And we're reviewing Eternals, right? That's what we're gonna do.
Ooh. I'm seeing it opening week. So God, is that next week already? Ooh.
It is. Yeah, you didn't fly out for the premiere? You didn't get to go out?
No. I had a lot of like life stuff that was happening that week, so I was like, I just can't squeeze it in because it was.
Yeah. Odfell gets invited to premieres.
Yeah, tell us more.
It's really fun. It's really fun. So
why? I don't mean that in a rude way. Like, why? Is it because you're cosplay, or is it because of your YouTube? Like, what's the reason that you get invited?
Yeah, so it's a lot of for cosplay. I know some people get brought out just because like they're influencers or whatever, but whenever I get invited, they specifically like want me to cosplay there. Because a lot of people ask me that, they're like, why are you wearing cosplays to the red carpet? Like, dress nice. And I'm like, no, like I have to. Like I have to get my costume pre-approved. Like,
wow.
So it's, yeah, they usually try and populate it with like cosplayers, preferably of the movie, but usually just Marvel.
Wow.
It's really cool. It's really cool. So
That's cool. Can I actually ask about one more quick question, if you don't mind?
You got,
okay, I do believe on your wall behind you, when you've done like the Mad My X, you have all your single issues on your wall. Am I correct?
yeah, I have a handful here. Wait, you can see it actually.
Yeah. How do you? What's holding those up? Is it like a pocket binder or something with all those? I've always wanted to ask you. I figured it's my chance, so I could do it because it looks great.
Thank you. So they're all bags and boards, and you have to start from the bottom up.
Okay.
And like I squeegee them all the way to the bottom of the bag and board and put a thumbtack just so that way the thumbtack isn't touching the book but only going through the cardboard. And then I layer the next book over the cardboard top so it just lines up perfectly with the top of the comic so you can't see how it's attached. It's like the flat push pins, I guess, not thumbtacks.
I get what you're saying. Looks sharp, so that's all I wanted to ask.
Thank you.
all right. And I want to take this time to thank everybody for joining us live. If you're watching this later, thank you all so much. If you're watching this later, I'm sorry, we've already given away the prices, but always come back because I like to pay things forward and give things away. I'm still recouping though from the last big giveaway, but it's a lot of fun. So anybody, yeah, sorry about hurting your bank account, man. My bad. But everybody, don't forget to hit the like button on the way out, and thank you for being here. Stay healthy and safe out there. Have a great